All right, so let's get into it. So our first review of the day is going to be for the director of Babe, Pig in the City.
Oh,
We get
don't forget Happy Feet too.
Happy Feet director as well, George Miller here, who's returned to his Mad Max universe. There was Mad Max Fury Road, which almost is coming up on its 10-year anniversary. Next year will be 10 years since Mad Max Fury Road came out. Yeah, so this is a prequel to the Mad Max Fury Road film and focusing on the Furiosa character, Furiosa, who we met in Fury Road, who was played by Charlize Theron in that. This one is now the character is played by Anna Taylor-Joy. Anna Taylor-Joy, who we've seen a lot these days. Anna Taylor-Joy, who's pretty much A-list, popped up in a lot of different stuff. The Menu, The Witch, various amount of different projects, TV series, The Queen's Gambit.
Don't forget, the much beloved New Mutants.
New Mutants as well there.
Look, man, she's got those eyes.
Yeah. So yeah, she's appeared in a lot of different stuff. She's playing the younger version of the Furiosa character here in this prequel. Also, some new additions that we have in the cast here. Chris Hemsworth, who's playing Dr. Dementis here. A very different look than we've seen Chris Hemsworth be from his course being Thor in the MCU films there. But channeling a lot of different energy here for this. And I kind of like it, and we're going to get more into his performance there. But what is happening in this film? So you do have Chris Hemsworth, who is pretty much the main bad guy of this, instead of a Morton Joe who was in the Fury Road film. A lot of it is focused on Dr. Dementis, who's played by Chris Hemsworth, and a lot of how he kind of has impacted Furiosa, has impacted her life. Is almost, she said, on a mission to basically shut him down, because in this wasteland, as you see in this Mad Max kind of world, this wasteland, this post-apocalyptic world, everyone's fighting over resources, water and gasoline. And who controls those territories? Who controls those things that run all this? And you have Dr. Dementis, who really tries to make his way into that, of being a major player in that. And a lot of that kind of intersects with Furiosa and her character and wanting to kind of shut him down. So I'm going to go around, get you guys' thoughts on this film. Dusk, what are your thoughts on Furiosa, a Mad Max saga?
For an 80-year-old man, George Miller can still shoot action. I'll give him that. I thought a lot of there's one particular huge set piece in the middle of the movie that is just fantastic, really well done, really well executed. I did notice there's a lot more CGI than there was in his previous movies, or at least it's a little bit more noticeable than it was before. But honestly, the production of this movie was insane if you look behind the scenes, because I was kind of interested in how he shoots his movies and what he does. And yeah, he put a lot of effort into this, and it really does show on the screen. I think everyone does a pretty good job with their characters. Anna Taylor-Joy, I think, does fair enough as Furiosa. I think she does an all right job. She does carry herself fairly well. Although there's just something about Charlize Theron's performance in the original one that, well, she is like I think carried it a little bit further as an older version of that character. Chris Hemsworth is hamming it up. He's really hamming it up in this one. Honestly, he's the star of the show, really. And more than anything, just like in where people complained, and I can totally understand their complaint in Fury Road, or where Mad Max was barely a character in Fury Road. He had like a couple of sentences, and it was really more Furiosa's movie. It's kind of the inverse, where this movie's about Furiosa, but really it's about Chris Hemsworth. It's really about Dr. Dementis in this, really. And his attempt to rise to a position of power and how much it impacts everybody else. I mean, in the whole movie, she, I think, collectively has 30 sentences.
Yeah, I think the total was she has like 32 lines of dialogue. Anya Taylor-Joy does.
Very soft-spoken, very, I suppose, similar to Mad Max in that way, where she speaks when she needs to, when she wants to, when it's pertinent, and then she basically is quiet and just does action when it happens. I will also give this movie this, in a really recent gut, honestly, since Fury Road, we've been seeing nothing but nonstop girl bosses who can just kick anyone's ass, takes no damage, so this and there. No, she gets her ass kicked a lot in this. She gets her butt kicked in this, and that really does add to the tension. She's not invulnerable. She's not invincible. Stuff does happen. Now, whether it makes any sense or not, that's up to the debate, but it does happen. There are moments of tension. There are moments of additional character. Maybe it's not as much as the original Mad Max series, but it is there for the collective newer version that he's trying to go. The more exaggerated version that he's been going with since, I'd say, Thunderdome on, really.
Well, that's a thing with Mad Max as a series. Like, there's no real, almost no real continuity to all of them. All of them kind of exist within their own different little subgenres of post-apocalypse films. All of them are very different, different types of stories that he's telling. And for me, with the Fury Road and to an extent with the Furiosa, Miller is less interested in telling the story here. He's more interested in shooting the cool action, which I give it to him, because this stuff is impressive, especially considering how old he is.
Yeah. 80 years old and still shoots this like nobody's business.
Yeah, and taking so many lessons from, I think, a lot of other great action filmmakers like Gareth Evans, just to give a comparison, because what we talked about in our review for The Raid and The Raid 2 is how every action set piece, it always has like these little moments of crescendo, and then it just keeps escalating and escalating until there. Just keeps you engaged in its action, and he does that beautifully in this film, especially in this one, I think, almost like 30-minute set piece involving the war rig.
Oh yeah, the whole scene there. Yeah, this does feel like similar to really good bottleneck movies like The Raid and even Dread 2012. It's like playing a level in a video game. As you kind of get progressively further, the stakes get a little bit raised, and you get a little bit more abilities to kind of progress further. And while some of that works here, I don't think it works as well as Fury Road, which, ironically enough, is just one long chase scene. Just a non-stop chase scene.
Yeah. So, like I said, with this movie being a prequel to Fury Road, and it's been a minute since we've seen the Mad Max universe. Like I said, almost 10 years there. So it's kind of like, this was kind of one of my most anticipated movies of the year, because it has been so long since we've visited this world. And Mad Max Fury Road is one of the greatest action movies ever made. I think it's in that list for a lot of people, of just how impressive it was. Of kind of what they did during this production. This production took a long time with Fury Road, like 7 years, and then constant disputes there when it came to budget, back and forth there. And what was done was really impressive, and they did everything the long and hard way. And I think with Furiosa, I think you kind of see that, okay, it's not, it was a difficult production as it was with Fury Road, that you do see kind of some of the CGI there with some of the things kind of going on. And I think that kind of shines through a little bit. And like I say, it's kind of like in a sense with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, where, you're following what came before, and what came before was so great. How do you measure up to it? And that's a tough task. And I don't think this movie really measures up to Fury Road, but like I said, Fury Road is one of the greatest action movies ever. So it's hard to kind of measure up to that and stack up against that. And like Dusk said, it's funny because, like you said, it's almost like this movie. People talk about Fury Road and how, like, hey, this should have been a Furiosa movie, which George Miller really wanted to do anyway. He really wanted to do a Furiosa movie instead of just a Mad Max movie. But he had to bring him in there for brand recognition. This feels like more like a Chris Hemsworth, Dr. Dementis movie. Like the first 30 minutes of the movie is a lot of just him, and
it's not so. It is kind of a Dr. Dementis movie, but it's kind of like his Joker performance. Because he's almost basically playing the Joker in this.
Oh, he is salivating and just chewing scenery every moment he's in it.
He is chewing so much scenery. I'm surprised his teeth isn't rotten.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they look pretty rotten in this movie here.
Hey, man, it's post-apocalypse. There ain't too much toothpaste around.
And he does like a interesting thing with his voice that he does here.
Yeah.
Kind of like where he kind of has this transatlantic, circus announcer type voice that he kind of
Yeah,
does here.
Greatest Showman style.
Yeah, which is
Mhm.
which is kind of very interesting the
Yeah,
way he does.
even down to like his costume, which like exaggerated costumes are kind of hand in hand with the Mad Max world, but his really stands out, especially as the film story progresses and how the little details in his costume that changes.
Yeah, he's got like a chariot, like with motorcycles, and it's very, very interesting. Of course, there's a lot of
Mhm.
these different, Mad Max kind of characters are. So he
Yes,
knows how to.
but he doesn't have a doof warrior, and that's why he loses.
Yeah, I think here's a little bit. You hear some of his voice of the way he sounds.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
Yeah. Very interesting, yeah, what he does there, and it's good to see Chris Hemsworth, show
Mhm.
like okay, he can do some other stuff
Mhm.
outside of just being Thor. Try to experiment with some more different stuff there,
I mean,
expand
he's
his
been
Yeah,
wanting to
range.
do that for a
yeah,
while.
yeah. Even in the performances I've liked from Chris Hemsworth outside of Marvel, it's been very stoic, very action-heavy characters like an Extraction, and here he gets to show some range at beyond that.
Yeah, I did love him in Rush. I thought he was very
Mhm.
fantastic. I think Rush is probably his best, one of his best performances to date is that film, which was the Ron Howard film there. Yeah, so you do have that. And of course, even though I mentioned the CGI with this film, but you still get a lot of really fantastic action in here with Furiosa. It's still a lot of really great over the top things. You mentioned the sequence with the war rig, which is very good. You get these great car chase battles here, as you always do with these Mad Max films. So that's all still very good. I still think you'll get that. And I saw it in IMAX. I
Mhm.
saw that, Billy. I think this is a movie that you want to see on the biggest screen possible to hear the roaring of the engines, the revving of it, to hear all the explosions, to hear that kind of going on. I mean, George Miller, I think does it again. I think with that kind of big spectacle type of action here. What about you, Nick? What were some of your thoughts here?
If you liked Fury Road as much as I did, you're gonna have a great time with Furiosa. Every thing that Miller brought to those action set pieces in Fury Road, he brings it in spades again with Furiosa. Now, this had a much shorter production period than Fury Road did, so there are like little cracks in the scene beyond that. There is a bit more use of CGI, but it's I don't know if it was like just lesser use of it. It just feels like when you do see it, it does stand out quite a bit more. But for me, I had a grand old time with this movie. The Everything from the sound mixing to the cinematography to the stunt work in this, even the performance from Chris Hemsworth, from Anya Taylor-Joy, it's all just a grand old time.
Mm, yeah. And this movie, I forgot to mention, so it is 30 minutes longer than Fury
Mhm.
Road, and I think you kind of feel that in the length there, just a tad bit. I mean, the Fury Road was 2 hours. I think that goes by super quick. I think when you get into the story, and it doesn't take that long to really get into the heat of things. Like, okay, Max gets captured, and then
Oh,
you meet
5
the
to 10 minutes.
yeah, so it's like boom, right away. You're already in the thick of things, and you're already doing this huge, long car chase, and then one way, and then she has to go all the way back the other way. There for that. So it doesn't take that long to get in the thick of things. As opposed to here, I think it does take a little minute to get into things, to get into you know, kind of the main action and the main kind of plot here of the story. What about you, Dusk? What's some of your thoughts there?
Uh, yeah, I think there's one thing that we haven't talked about real quick is while the action scenes are great and I love the art and
Mhm.
direction, I thought they did a very good job. I think everyone's acting was fairly strong for the most part. There's a lot of parts in this movie that aren't really shown in the trailer, and that's for the best or not. But
Mhm.
it really Anya Taylor Joy doesn't really come in until like 40 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, this is true. It's like a near 2.5 hour movie, and Anya Taylor Joy, the main star of it, isn't featured for basically the entire first and a half act of this.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
That character also is she eventually gets a mentor like character, and they're barely shown in any trailers at all. And they're actually quite a significant part of the story for them for Furiosa as well. A lot of the I think besides that big middle part of the movie with that great war rig moments,
Mhm.
I just don't think the ending had that rush you got at the end of Fury Road that really climactic moment that ends. George Miller ends on every great note. I kind of felt a little let down by that. It almost like it peaked early, midway through, and then never quite caught up at the end.
Yeah.
And it almost felt like there were two climaxes. And one was the big one that everybody wanted. And then it's well, what about the second? And we've seen a lot of movies, at least I have, that they've been doing this lately, where it's the 3-act structure. And now it's almost like well, can we have a second, third act? And you're like, no, you had your third act.
And
the second, third act is the credits and me going home.
Yeah, it's both a good and a bad thing about this movie, because while the action set piece that we're talking about with the war rig, while that is epic and it is stunning to watch, and it's a good 30 minutes of this movie, no other set piece in the movie really lives up to that. Whereas in Fury Road, you had the amazing initial chase, and then it just kept going and kept escalating, kept adding different elements that we, as an audience, had to worry about for Max and Furiosa.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, it's hard to top. I mean, that final like third act of that movie where it's just the big long car chase all the way back to the Citadel. I mean, that's just amazing. I mean, that's just brilliant there, what they do there. And
people are Mad Max fans are still debating which is better, Fury Road or Road Warrior. And it really just comes down to do we like the little bit of characterization and kind of more the grittiness of Road Warrior and the real life stunt work and the craziness, and then the grit and kind of like almost the sad ending at the end of that versus the non-stop great action, great stunt work, just thumping action throughout the entirety of it, which is arguably better. And the fact that there's two very good options in the series is great. I actually think the first Mad Max doesn't get as much respect as it should. It started off a lot of great genres, and I think it's a very underrepresented in its own series. And the first half of Thunderdome is great, and then it becomes a different movie, and you're either on board with that or you're not. And as soon as the kids show up, it becomes something else. But yeah, it's hard to top. George Miller has been consistently doing his best to reinvent himself while still maintaining consistency with his movies. And he has a wide range of different movies that he's worked on. So yeah, this one, I guess comparatively, I'm going to be honest. I find myself more interested in Max's journey than I was Furiosa's. I felt like Furiosa's story was fairly decently told in that one movie. I really don't need to know what happened, but I guess if you're going to do that story, you need to really wow me. And I would say I was mostly wowed, but not completely. I enjoyed a lot of the movie, but at the same time, it's everything that was summed up in Fury Road was all I needed to really know at the end of the day. It kind of summed it up without really going into the detail. And I heard some people, and I understand where they're coming from, they do feel like Furiosa is just a copy of Mad Max. Again, it's just like it's just the female version of Mad Max. And they do have some small differences, but I also can't blame them for also feeling they are kind of very similar characters.
Well, I think that's both a pro and a con, because where Mad Max and Fury Road, we see a Furiosa that's at the end of this journey that she's on. She's resolving to rescue Joe's Immortan Joe's wives and bring them back to the Green Gardens. And in Furiosa, she is basically in that, just revenge-driven course of action that we know Max is on. So where she is at her journey, this is the closest that she is to Mad Max.
Yeah.
Let me see where you're coming from that.
So, Dusk, what would you give Furiosa Mad Max Saga?
If you're going to see this movie, I do think you should probably see it on the big screen. There's nothing quite like seeing a George Miller movie, but on the big screen. You really get to see the colors pop. You feel the thunder of the auditorium as you're listening, the thunder of the theater, the audio design. Get to really see the details on it. I do like the middle, and I get the additional of the second, third act. I'm gonna be honest, it just didn't. I didn't love. I wanted to love it, and I didn't quite love it. But at the end of the day, I still think it's a fine. It's a fine movie. It does well. It's well done. The stunts are well done. The action's well done. The characterizations are pretty solid. Maybe not great, but that's not the point of the movie, really. So, with all that said, I think we'll go with a high tune in. I think this is like, you should definitely check it out. This is a high tune in. It just doesn't quite reach the peak level for me, but I can definitely, I could recommend go see it in the theater.
Yeah. All right, Nick. What about you?
I'm kind of at that same spot that you are, Dusk. I'd give this a very, very high peak. There's just a little bits in here where this was close to being as good, if not better, than Fury Road. However, I do think that the movie does kind of peak a little bit early with its second act, with that insane car chase with the war rig. That's where the movie peaks for me, and nothing in the third act comes even close to that. I feel like the movie's structure is a little odd. The movie is telling a much grander story on a much more larger scale, but that's both to the movie's benefit and to its detriment, because you do kind of feel parts of it drag and slow in moments of it. But purely on a technical level, for the stunt work, the production design on this movie is worth it to see in a theater on the biggest screen with the best sound system you can find.
So yeah, I don't think it's as good as Fury Road. Doesn't mean it's bad. It just, I mean, you're given with, like I said, heavy competition with Fury Road. I mean, when it came out, it just blew people's minds, and considered, like I said, one of the greatest action movies ever, right up there. So it's hard to kind of top that and kind of do it again there with this movie. And like I said, I was very excited to see this. I wouldn't say I was disappointed, after seeing it. I do think it doesn't live up to maybe quite the experience I wanted it to be there coming into it, but it still is a very solid movie. It still is a movie that you should definitely go see in theaters. Like I said, biggest sound system, as Nick says, as you possibly can, biggest screen as you possibly can, because of all the technical stuff in here involved, and because of the action, and because of George Miller and his wonderful direction, and also the wonderful team that he worked with this movie here. And I think a lot of the same people did come back to this as they did who worked on Fury Road. So a lot of the same people did come back. And for also, I mean, Chris Hemsworth, very, very terrific performance here as Dr. Dementus. I mean, he's having a lot of fun. He's both kind of intimidating and funny, and charming and psychotic and sexually weird. You know what I mean? So he's channeling a lot of levels here, and I think he really stands out very much. Showing very good. So yeah, for all those things, I would also give it a strong tune in as well. And I think the length is a little bit of a problem, it being 30 minutes longer. I don't think it flows as nicely as Fury Road does. That feels so like very much a good pace there. It does take a while to get into things, to get into the swing of things there. And it just doesn't have that great third act that Fury Road has with kind of everything kind of going on. But it's still a lot of really great action sequences or set pieces that really work and really well done. And some of the CGI, even though it is noticeable, I don't think it's that quite big of a deal, even though it is kind of noticeable. But yeah.
I had a question for you guys. I don't know if you noticed it, but how did you guys feel? The actress who played young Furiosa, Alia Brown, I thought she did a fine job. Honestly, she did a really good job for how young she was. How did you guys feel about them using AI to kind of blend her and Anya Taylor-Joy together? Am I the only one who thought that was kind of weird?
I didn't know they did that. Oh, they blended.
Yeah, they did. They used AI imagery to blend her features with Taylor-Joy's on occasion.
Okay. I kind of had this talk with a couple other creators around where I'm living, and I'm not so much against AI when it is used as a tool to kind of make the lives of digital artists easier. Because I got to imagine how many hundreds of hours would have had to been spent doing that digitally through CGI versus just running it through this AI processor. It's not like it contributed to anything in the writing, so I'm kind of iffy on it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if it's something like that, I guess it's not too big of a deal, and if the actress was fine with it. I guess there wasn't any problem with that. So yeah, I guess there's really no issue with that one in particular. Use of AI. It's just a tool that if you use it correctly, it's
Mhm.
no problem with it. If it doesn't replace any
I was
jobs.
just curious. I was just curious how you guys saw it, and if you did, and what you felt about it.
No, I legitimately thought they found a young actress who could, be a spitting image for young Anya Taylor-Joy.
It was more around the end that they kind of started applying it as like a transition to that to kind of blend it together for certain
Yeah.
shots.
So 3 strong tune-ins for Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, and George Miller says he possibly wants to do more movies in the Mad Max universe.
Please.
Yeah.
Please, if they are, even come to being if he comes even like a bit close to as good as this and Fury Road are, keep making them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's done 5 so far.
Yeah.
So
Honestly, if he like Mad Max is okay, but I would like to see one more Mad Max from him just to kind of like put a stamp on it and like we're done. I'm done with this character, and then maybe I'll do side stuff. But
he says he wants to work with Chris Hemsworth again. Maybe he says
Yeah,
maybe
why
he'd
not?
do a
Yeah,
Thor
he's
5. I don't know.
Yeah, it was like when I heard that announcement, I just kind of like screamed to Kevin Feige. He's like, "Don't fuck this up!"
Don't fuck it.
But yeah, I don't know. I think he would do good at doing the Jason Aaron run of Thor and doing that. I think he would do pretty good at that. All right, so that was our review of Furiosa.